A certain kind of love moves beneath the surface of everyday commotion, an unseen stream that whispers its secrets. Subtle hand gestures, silent presences, and constellations of caring speak louder than words ever could. Carl Jung, in his extensive study of the mind, came to the realization that language is not the exclusive means by which the soul communicates. It manifests as energies that evade the ego's control, unconscious habits, and spontaneous activities. A person's behaviors take on an invisible resonance when they love. It's like an emotional vibration that rises from the unconscious and reaches you not as explanation, but as emotion. It is unusual for someone to intentionally do these signs. Surprisingly, the one exhibiting them frequently is unaware that they're doing so. Their innocence lies in that fact. The unconscious mind is incapable of deceit, even when the ego and persona try to make it seem that way. Observations, intonation, the innate desire to shield, and an abrupt quietness that is comforting rather than desolate are all ways it seeps through. Not because they are showy, but because they are genuine. These represent genuine connection. True love, according to Jung, is an archetype of connection, and the soul communicates through these symbols. Uninvited as it enters our bodies, it leaves behind impressions that are not audible but tangible. In this article, we will delve into 6 of these subtle cues, those fleeting but significant instances when love manifests itself silently. What you're going to witness might make you reevaluate your long-held notions of love. True love, however, does not need to make itself known. Once you learn to read these signs, you'll start to feel a deeper truth. It communicates with the spirit, the unconscious harmony, even now. At times, 2 spirits entwine, and a long-forgotten energy awakens, just beyond the surface of consciousness. What develops between them is an illogically harmonious silence, not just love or compatibility. Emotional synchronicity was the term used by Carl Jung to describe this phenomena. It is characterized by a shared experience that emerges not via words, but through shared silences, mirroring motions, and an innate sense of harmony. An unseen dance unfolds when we see 2 people who are really close to one another. Their breaths gradually become more regular. Unspoken empathy is conveyed by their mirroring facial expressions. It is as if some higher power had orchestrated their movements. Modern neuroscience refers to this phenomenon as neuronal mirroring, but according to Jung, it is the soul identifying with another. This harmony is not something that can be practiced or taught, according to Jungian theory. It reflects a common unconscious experience, a convergence of archetypes. Something beyond ego occurs when 2 psyches meet in this domain. Each person's animus and anima, their innate masculine and feminine principles, start to tune in, react, and synchronize. Gender and intentional desire are irrelevant to alignment. A soul that recognizes another soul. According to Jung, the meeting of 2 personalities is analogous to the coming into touch of 2 chemical substances. Both undergo transformation in the event of a response. This chemical reaction is emotional synchrony. During times of difficulty, its deepest manifestation is frequently exposed. Those that love you deeply will be able to read your mind in an emergency. Even before you speak, they will be able to gauge your emotional state. They have an innate ability to sense when you need peace, company, or attention and will respond accordingly. I was drowning in stress, but hadn't told anyone. When my partner walked through the door, he simply said, "Let's go for a quiet walk." It was exactly what I needed, as if he had heard what I could not say. Maria, a patient, had a profound experience. This is an example of unconscious resonance in action. If someone truly loves you, they will meet your unspoken needs quietly, without asking for your praise or acknowledgement. The fact that this synchronization is not limited by physical distance is even more astounding. Innumerable instances of soulmates, friends, and romantic partners experiencing each other's emotional states through shared symbols, sensations, and dreams have been recorded by Jung. The subconscious communicates in various ways. Unpredictability is key to this type of love. It is as free-flowing as a river, never requiring explanation or preparation. Rather than a performance, it is an acknowledgement. As a result of being seen rather than persuaded, something within you softens when you have this experience. An unspoken resonance, where your spirit feels reflected, not in illusion but in reality, is the first and most profound indicator of genuine love. The constant reflection of your unrealized potential, the optimistic projection. Jung referred to this delicate but transformational psychological dynamic as persistent positive projection, and it is via this process that the second deep evidence of genuine love emerges. The ability for one's own spirit to see and cherish another's greatest potential, even when that other has lost sight of it. Shadow material, or the disowned and unconscious parts of ourselves that we unintentionally project onto other people, whether as idealization or criticism, is a common topic of discussion in classical Jungian theory when it comes to projections. However, in the presence of genuine love, Jung also noticed a more ethereal projection. This is the capacity to perceive a person's development into more than just their current self. The sacred gaze is able to see the archetype of completeness concealed within, peering through the mist of anxiety, disappointment, and lack of confidence. Love is the capacity to see what is invisible in the other. This insight is grounded on reality, according to a letter Jung wrote at one point. This is not naivete. Recognizing the latent potential of another soul is what it is all about. The sanctity of this projection is enhanced by its enduring nature. Keep going even when you mess up, and don't give up when you show the world how fragile you are. No matter how bad things become, it will be there for you. When you're weak, this type of love honors you more than when you're strong. It worships you at your core. In the depths of my depression, when I felt like an empty shell, my partner would gently remind me of my compassion, my insight, my brilliance. He held those parts of me like sacred relics I had forgotten I owned. This persistent positive projection expresses itself in quiet, consistent ways, according to Joel, a 39-year-old university professor. No matter how little you try, the one who loves you will see it. Even if you merely mention your dreams in passing, they will still urge you to pursue them. Their presence, rather than pressure, will serve to remind you of your truth. Their affirmation stems from a place of knowing rather than performance. They perceive potential in you that has not been fully realized yet, which is probably the most significant thing. This is not an attempt to downplay or ignore your humanity. In fact, they treat your shadow and light with the same degree of respect. Your shadows are not anything to be afraid of. Rather, they are determined not to be defined by them. This distinguishes idealization from persistently positive projection. It isn't about pretending to be flawless, but rather about seeing potential firmly grounded in acceptance. This is characterized as perceiving the heavenly spark in another person in numerous spiritual traditions. According to Rumi, what you seek is seeking you. An alchemical power is unleashed when another person continually perceives the sacred within you, even when you fail to do so yourself. Gradually, you start to transform into that persona. You climb toward it not because you feel pressured or forced, but because it invites you to be more yourself. Gentle question: who in your life truly sees you, beyond your accomplishments, and appreciates you for who you are? Who returns to you the image of the person you are becoming into at this very moment? According to Jung, that is a worthwhile mirror to gaze into. One's complete presence, the silent gift that discloses the devotion of the soul. A sacred act so rare that it becomes a revelation exists in a world overloaded with distraction and fractured attention. The quality of one's presence with another, rather than outward displays of affection or well-chosen words, is one of the strongest signs of true love, according to Jung. It is the unspoken bond that holds people together in quiet awe for the other person or thing in front of us. When two people are truly present with each other, it's not only about being physically close, it's about being fully available mentally, emotionally, energetically, and spiritually. When one reaches this state, they're totally present, unprotected, open, and engaged. This mindset is aptly captured by the Zen concept of beginner's mind, the ability to approach another person or thing with no prior assumptions, to meet them as new and unprepared. When one stops projecting their own ego, expectations, or projections onto another, and instead lets their own soul shine through. Jung finally saw this as the pinnacle of conscious relationships. Someone who loves you listens with an ethereal serenity that changes the atmosphere, in stark contrast to the usual flurry of activity and competitive monologues that characterize most social interactions. They pick up on your pauses as much as your words. They pick up on the significance of your silences and the feelings conveyed by your words. They are not idling. They're seeing you brought into existence. According to Jung, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. However, realizing this transformation requires complete focus and surrendering to the present moment. There are subtle but recognizable indicators of this sacred presence. Non-intrusive or withholding eye contact, a face that gently reflects your emotions, joy, sadness, or confusion. With empathy, a body that faces you directly, not distracted or distant, but fully present. A silence that holds rather than fills space, and questions that arise not out of duty, but from true curiosity about your inner life. I realized I was in love when I noticed how fully seen I felt in our conversations. It was as if the world fell away and we were suspended in a moment of shared awareness. In that gaze, I didn't need to explain myself. It simply was. Such genuine interest is uncommon because it demands bravery, the bravery to temporarily put aside one's own worries, stories, and defenses to allow another to take center stage. For Jung, this was a kind of self-sacrifice, a brief release of control from the ego that allowed for the formation of a sacred container, a psychological room where one's true self could emerge. This caring presence is referred to as an awareness that does not judge or analyze, but rather permits in Buddhist tradition. The constancy of this indicator is quite remarkable. The ordinary, such as waiting in line at the grocery store, sipping coffee in the morning, or riding shotgun in a car, might just as readily give way to it as dramatic moments or intense emotions. Every second spent with you is precious to someone who loves you. Every second matters. Rather from being an afterthought, this is the very foundation upon which love can rest and flourish. Attention, as Jung pointed out, is the most unique and unadulterated kind of kindness. Still, it begs the universal question: how resilient is this kind of presence when confronted with diversity, misunderstanding, and conflict? Maybe it's more important to be present when it's easier to retreat than to strive for perfection. Within the integrative conflict, love transforms from an ideal into a reality. Love changes disparities. Paradoxically, it is in the heat of conflict that one can find the most telling evidence of genuine love. It is not about avoiding conflict altogether, but rather about handling it delicately so that it might be transformed. Carl Jung made the astute observation that when love is genuine and emotionally developed, conflict is no longer seen as an enemy, but as a potential pathway forward. In this dialectic of love, he said, competing realities do not shatter bonds, but rather, via the graceful waltz of introspection, strengthen them. Fear, management, or suppression of conflict characterizes the dynamics of most partnerships. However, according to Jungian theory, genuine love does not aim to make things easier. As the site of psychological integration's inception, it is revered there. Dissimilarities between people produce the emotional and mental energy needed for individuation within the context of a relationship, much like friction produces the heat essential for change. Instead of being a means to an end, a sacred container that contains contradiction, love becomes this way in this context. In the midst of a dispute, this dynamic manifests in actions that are both subtle and significant. Lovers keep their feet firmly planted on their own truth while remaining receptive to yours. They refuse to cower in submission or mount a defensive front. They keep looking in your direction. They sound more powerful when they lower their voice, not weaker. They pause not to plot a course of action, but to contemplate. The most moving part is that they let their guard down just when their egos are about to explode. The most important thing is not what is said in a debate, but rather the level of connection that is maintained. The most deeply connected couples are not those who fight less, but those who emerge from conflict with a deeper sense of having been seen. This is what Jung called the creative tension of opposites. Couples therapist Pedro, who has been working with couples for 20 years, agrees. Rather than trying to put out the other's ideas, each side in such a disagreement holds fast to its own unique viewpoint, hoping that it would shed light on something new. The aim is not conformity, but comprehension. This is in keeping with a common theme in Taoist philosophy, according to which yin and yang are not antagonists, but rather equal parts that work together to establish harmony. Similarly, the ability to simultaneously retain seemingly contradictory ideas is called non-duality, and it is the road to wholeness according to Zen teachings. The aftermath of a disagreement is the most telling indicator of the presence of love in that situation. Is there a graceful return to the emotional bond, or does the person turn away? Do they use the past as a weapon, or do they use the knowledge they've gained to move forward? Loving relationships allow room for healing without harboring grudges. A wound is transformed from a barrier into an opening. Something revolutionary is revealed by this type of integrative conflict. Love-based relationships are not characterized by the lack of conflict. Instead of fewer, they usually have more brave and open discussions, for the reason that the presence of truth necessitates the presence of safety, and vice versa. This begs the following question. How does love act when we are completely vulnerable in our most basic human needs, rather than defending, performing, or explaining? How someone acts when they see you at your weakest point is the key. True love is proven or disproven by how it handles exposure, more so than any proclamation or vow. There is a holy moment that discloses the reality of love. It comes when you're at your most vulnerable, when you let your guard down and expose your innermost wounds, worries, and insecurities, not when things are easy. As a rite of passage in partnerships, Carl Jung saw this period as a psychological crucible, because the archetype of genuine love either emerges or crumbles in this moment of exposed vulnerability. This is not the time for showmanship. This is a journey into one's inner self, a crossing over into the realm where one's true identity emerges. The way someone holds your brokenness, not your strengths, is the true measure of love, according to Jung. When you're down, the one who loves you most won't run away. They don't back down, divert, or lessen. Rather, they approach with an air of calm reverence. This shift is delicate yet noticeable. Maintaining non-pity eye contact is a quality of a softened gaze. Being in an open position prevents it from turning away. It is in the stillness that does not seek perfection, but rather makes room for your inner world to be. What Jung called the alchemy of presence occurs when love can contain suffering without passing judgment on it. In this space, one can be fully exposed without shattering from shame. An expert in trauma treatment, Louisa refers to this unusual occurrence as the sacred response to vulnerability. It is not what someone says, but what they do not turn away from. It is the unspoken message. I see you, I am not afraid of this. I am staying, this peaceful staying becomes a rock amid the storm, a reflection of your value, even when your emotions are all over the place, she says. It has long been revered across spiritual traditions that one can endure suffering. It was considered soul-tending in indigenous cultures. The original meaning was to suffer with, and Christian mysticism used the term compassion to describe it. Being able to see suffering without reacting negatively or trying to escape, it is called compassionate abiding in Buddhism. Just as revealing is the fact that this response is non-existent. Some may feel uneasy if their feelings are not based on true love. They could even try to shift the conversation away from you, downplay the severity of your pain, provide solutions you didn't ask for, or even secretly record your information to use against you later. They were projecting their own unresolved anxieties onto this, according to Jung. Because they haven't dealt with their own insecurities, they're unable to sit with your vulnerability. The higher the depth of the shadow, the more clearly the other person's inner position is shown. This is where being vulnerable becomes a psychological litmus test. As Jung put it, in the deepest darkness, the nature of light is most obvious. Without a genuine emotional base, it is extremely difficult to fabricate or maintain the correct reaction. This is not a performance. What comes out now is the core. This truth is encapsulated in a story that 45-year-old consultant Roberto relayed. The fear of failing has haunted me for a long time. My girlfriend made no effort to lift my spirits when I finally told her. Her counsel was non-existent. Quiet, calm, and fully present, she merely remained at my side. At that moment, I realized the depth of the love bestowed upon me. This is the beginning of a change, not merely a reassuring conversation. Feelings of calmness and relief wash over you when someone answers to your most intense pain by simply being there, without judgment or opposition. When you start to feel safe, your mind opens up and trust is developed, not from words, but from actions. And thus it is that when two people open up to each other, it takes their connection to a whole new level of intimacy, a level where they may let their souls breathe easier, where secrets are revealed and loved, and where love is no longer a concept, but a real haven. This profound and holy reaction to exposure is the highest manifestation of love. It also leads inexorably to the last and most unexpected sign. The presence in the tiny things, as well as the large, spectacular moments, are where genuine love shows itself. Loving someone truly is the last secret. Instead of dramatic displays or flowery declarations, the subtle cadence of daily life may be the last and most life-altering evidence of genuine love. In his enduring role as a student of the unconscious mind, Carl Jung made the astute observation that the sacred does not always manifest in the extraordinary, but rather in the mundane, when one's presence is truly present. Subtle, recurring acts of devotion, a form of inner vigilance where the other is gently kept in one's mind even in the midst of daily life, are the most obvious manifestations of genuine love. Love like this doesn't make a fuss. It just exists. What Jung referred to as attentive presence at the edges of consciousness was exactly this state of mind. Also, it's plain to see in all the subtle ways in which one's spirit makes room for another. A silent hand silently stretching out for yours. A silent embrace, a blanket draped over your shoulders. The specifics of your routines help to perpetuate your recall of your preferences. Rather than performing, this love remembers. Before your mouth utters the words tired, it picks up on your eyes dimming. The subtle change makes you feel understood even when you don't say a word. Carlos, a 52-year-old doctor, reflected, "I didn't really get my wife's love for me until I realized she'd been giving me the last bite of every dessert for years. She never said it. It was never a show. It was just her way of giving without wanting to be seen. This kind of loving presence cannot be. It cannot be sustained as a strategy or tactic. It arises only when the beloved's well-being is woven into one's own. When care becomes instinct and love becomes the atmosphere of being." Spiritual traditions around the world have echoed this truth. In Zen, it's called mindfulness in the mundane. In Christian mysticism, it's called the sacrament of the present moment. Jung believed that the self is not fully realized in isolation, but in how it meets and holds the other in ordinary moments of presence. He wrote, "The greatest tree grows from a tiny seed." These traditions believe that the divine is not only found in temples or cathedrals, but in how we wash a dish, hand a cup of tea, or greet someone without distraction. The surest sign of lasting love is not the grand romantic gesture, but the small and constant presence of attention, said Anna Maria, a therapist with 30 years of expertise, adding, "The deepest bond is born in the smallest gesture." The relationship is strengthened through time by these small acts of love, and there's a silent reciprocity in true love as well. When one person is seen as so dedicated, the other person begins to offer the same presence almost unconsciously, creating a virtuous cycle, an echo of love that becomes stronger with each repetition. The invisible but profound power of loving attention in the ordinary. The small acts that are never recorded in photographs or written in journals, but quietly become the foundation of something sacred and enduring. Anthropologists have found this thread across all cultures studied. What binds people together long after passion has cooled or compatibility has been tested is this. True love does not dwell in the limelight. It does not seek praise. Rather, it is found in the silence before speaking, in the remembered detail, in the unspoken sign of care. It is in the lingering gaze, in the reaching backhand, in the ordinary acts elevated by presence. This last sign serves as a reminder of something essential. If you have ever been on the receiving or giving end of such love, then you know what it's like. It's rare and real, not like a fling, but like the gentle glow of a soul recognizing another in the small things. If these thoughts touched you, then write a comment below using the phrase, seeing beyond words. Let's keep celebrating the sacred, subtle signs of love together. And always keep in mind that the most profound truths are not spoken aloud, but rather revealed in the details. If this message touched you, there's more where that came from. In the upcoming video, I'll be joining a community dedicated to truth, transformation, and genuine interchange. I'll be meeting you there in the next video as we continue to become our true selves. So, subscribe, enable notifications, and tap into this power now.